Callahan. I'm the director. You're right. Okay. I'm the director of the Federal and Enterprise Affairs for EC Council. EC Council is a international body, or a certification body. Mostly our flagship certification is the Certified Ethical Hacker cert. So we have a few other certs like Licensed Pen Tester, Forensic Certification. We also recently developed some new advanced security training programs, and we're going to start launching some regional, we're calling takedown cons, so regional events that will do three-day deep dive in some of the technology, some of the hacking threats, vulnerabilities, and then followed up with like a one-day kind of a free seminar for the local population. So I appreciate your time today. Let me just jump in here. I just wanted to play you guys a quick video. That's the first time I saw this. This is staggering just by just the sheer numbers of this. So I thought that was the first time I saw that was at one of our Hacker Halt events down in Miami this past October, and it was striking because it was, you think about the sheer numbers of the technology, the internet connections, the devices that are out in the marketplace today, and then you start talking about security and how secure is that data, how secure are these devices, and what is the world exposed to, what are your kids exposed to, what are you exposed to. And so what we've been focusing on, just not just EC Council, but some industry partners in the certification industry, the government, the defense industrial base, the financial sector, healthcare sector. It's a big concern for everybody. So we're all trying to come together, collaborate, and this is really one of the first times seeing a lot of even the government agencies coming together and collaborating. So it's a very critical need, and I'll get through some of the different initiatives that the government's been going through for the last couple of years and how it's going to impact everyone, because this is a national crisis. So there's a couple of bullet points that I wanted to present in the presentation. It's just an overview of the national workforce trends in cybersecurity, mapping of the initiatives for the NICE program. I don't know how many are you all familiar with the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education? Not just a few, okay. Just a certification. We've got a couple, actually Alan's out with CompTIA right now, but we have some news on some of the certifications that are in the marketplace, and then curriculum advancement and examples of some of the community-based programs. So it's a little cartoon I picked up a couple years ago, and at first I saw it, I was like, yeah, what is the cybersecurity professional going to look like? Because security, and your visualization of a security professional is this guy on the left. A big burly guy, is going to go out and conquer the world, and then the real guy, the cybersecurity guy, sitting behind the desk. Then I looked at it some more, and I saw these wireless devices connected to this guy. And I said, well, if his systems are hacked on that gun, and those things are shut down, his gun is irrelevant at that point in time. So that guy behind that desk that's sitting behind, you don't know who he is. So it was a pretty powerful clip there I saw. I just wanted to share that with you. So the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. This is an initiative that was actually stems from the Comprehensive National Cybersecurity Initiative. Started after, I think it was 2005. It was a classified initiative under the direction of the Director of National Intelligence. They wanted to review the posture of the United States as a whole. And looked at the different areas of weakness and some of the areas of improvement that we had to focus on. There's 12 main areas. They declassified the areas, and component number 8 was education. We figured out that the education system in the United States needs to be fixed. And specifically, it needs to focus on STEM, the science, technology, engineering, math. Not just in college, that's getting into the elementary schools. So there is this big initiative to start pushing down into that elementary level. So out of that initiative, the number 8 became the National Institute of Cybersecurity Education. So this is a White House program. It's run under the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, out of Maryland. Dr. McDuffie, Ernest McDuffie, is the lead for this program, and they looked at it in 4 different components. One is just general awareness. So that is just what is cybersecurity. So getting into the kids when your kids are online, what they're exposed to, sending text messages, getting on Facebook, what are you exposed to, and what is cybersecurity? That is being led by the Department of Homeland Security. Component 2 is formal education. So this is K through 12. This is the community colleges. It's the 4-year schools, and that's being led or co-leads is Department of Education, National Science Foundation. Component 3 is workforce structure. So this is more of an HR play. So what the government's doing now is looking internally, both in the DoD and some of the Department of Homeland Security and some of the other agencies, and looking internally, looking at their own cyber professionals and saying, what do we have today? Doing skills inventory and what's going to be needed for the future. So the DoD may have some specific skill sets for their mission, but it may not be applicable over the Department of Energy, and that may not be applicable over to the private sector. So you don't want Pepsi-Cola doing offensive measures against Coca-Cola. It's just illegal. It just wouldn't happen. So what they're doing now is they're working on some initiatives to basically come out with a framework that will give industry, give academia a roadmap to say this is what we need to train, this is what we need to educate these skill sets toward. Component 4 is more of the workforce training and professional development. So this gets into continuous education. So when a professional from, say, high school graduate, a college graduate, or someone that's currently in the workforce, they need to go back and refresh their skills. Cybersecurity, the technology is changing, but the threats and vulnerabilities within the cybersecurity realm are just changing rapidly. And that is being led by the Department of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, and Department of Homeland Security. But from the client-face side to the national critical infrastructure and to the general population, that's going to be led by the Department of Homeland Security. I just want to do a quick overview. We probably hear a lot in the news recently about the cyber attacks, cyber warfare. But these are the .mil domains. Typically, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, everybody knows that, and NSA sits in the middle of that. The domains of .gov, DHS, so you have your cabinet level agencies, but then you have your state governments, your local governments. So you're talking about 50 different states, 50 different needs. You have the federal government, you have all the cabinet level agencies, and then you have the DHS is going to oversee or collaborate and partner with the critical infrastructure, and that is basically the private sector. 80% of the critical infrastructure is owned by the private sector. So there is this rub from the private sector. The government, they don't want government coming in and controlling and taking over. So there is this collaborative partnership to say this is what we're seeing, this is what we need, this is your energy grid, this is your healthcare, this is your medical records. It's a big deal. So the government is trying to do whatever they can to come out to the local communities and start sharing this knowledge to make sure that your local communities are secure. So that's the critical infrastructure. Again, this is what DHS has identified are parts of your critical infrastructure. The ones in the circles, those are your three main. I don't want to force rank some of these, but those are the three big ones. The energy, of course, if you got a cyber attack, they shut down the grid. Blackouts, you could have some major issues there. You got your banking and financing, your credit cards are being stolen, hacking, all those different stories in the web. And then, most recently, the healthcare, public health, and the new health IT bill, all your medical records are going up in the cloud. It's a wall. You're going to have your local doctor's office now has to have your medical information up in the cloud. How secure is that going to be? So when you start breaking this down at that local level, into that local doctor's office, is he going to have a cyber professional making sure that that data is secure at that local office? So it's a pretty scary thing when you start breaking it down, and the government knows this, and they're trying to bring this to everybody's attention. The hidden domains. .com is approximately 60% of the government and military IT workforce. What that means is that the DoD is approximately, for all their IT, information assurance, all the different technology that's out there, 50% on average of the IT workforce are government contractors. That's the private sector, technically. Their mission is whatever agency they're working for, but this is where your local government or your local community, your local constituency can actually start helping in some of these areas. So you have the federal government, you have your state government. I know IBM down in the state of Georgia runs the cyber command down there. So a lot of this work is outside of that private sector. So you have your local government, your military. But now we're getting into the cybersecurity, education, community colleges. The goal from NICE is to fill the pipeline for future information assurance and cybersecurity professionals. And how do we do that? So .edu, the education market, K through 12, guys very familiar with that side. .com, the in-house training centers like the Global Knowledges, New Horizons, Learning Trees, the big groups. .gov, they all have their in-house training. Schoolhouse, they call them schoolhouses. Again, the military is the same thing. So bottom line is with the .com, the .gov, and the .mil, they're all competing for bodies. So the value proposition, when you start looking at it from where are these cyber professionals coming from, they're trying to get many kids or many of these schools starting to facilitate or introduce the concepts of cybersecurity, introduce the career fields, the career paths, because a lot of these kids don't know. And there's a lot of, Casey O'Brien in the back and Dan are running some of these cyber challenges, and it's a great way to get these kids introduced to the career fields. So it's a big push now over the last couple of years. Cybersecurity. This is just a simple slide here, so I'll just jump over that. So the opportunities. Community colleges are already part of the solution. You may not see it today. You may not have an information assurance program, but you already are if you're educating or facilitating some of the certification programs that are in the industry today. And they also have two schools. You have the accredited side, and a lot of the schools have the not accredited side, the training and professional development inside their local community or the business community. So when I said that the community colleges are already part of the solution, this is just a roadmap for the 8570 edition about a DoD. Inside of 8570, it's a mandatory program that if you're a military personnel or a government contract personnel and you're working on the secure network, you need to hold one of these certifications. So as an information assurance tech level 1, if you hold your A+ and you have a clean background, you can get your security clearance, you can go out and work for the DoD as a government contractor. If you have Security Plus, Network Plus, even certified ethical hacking, some of these schools you're probably already, in some of the different departments, your students are already probably pre-qualified. They have these certs, or if they're pursuing some of these certifications. The question is, are they familiar with these jobs that are out there already, and have they pursued that area, or would they want to be interested in, or would they be interested in a program? So with that said, this is the 8570 mandate, and you probably all are, just like everybody else in the industry, very confused with the certification market. There's a lot of certifications out there. If you add up the 5 major certifications that are on 8570, it's CompTIA, DC Council, GIAC, which most people know as SANS, ISACA, and ISC squared. If you add up all their certifications, there's over 40 certifications that all the certification bodies have. So in your profession or in your professional career, if you're a high school student, college student, even a working professional that's going to do a career change, what is your entry point into the industry? And then you look and say, well, someone says, well, you need a certification. Well, then you start looking at certifications, and there's 40 of them, and you're like, where do I start? So we came together last summer, and we started the Cybersecurity Certifications Consortium Collaborative, and we sat down and said, listen, somewhat we compete, probably not that much. Probably one of the cert bodies said they did a study. About 10% of the time we actually compete. Because our certifications all kind of map out, and that's part of what we're doing today. We're working on this kind of a roadmap for that career progression of where you want to go, if you want to be a cyber warrior or if you want to be a policy, more on the management side, what type of certifications you would need to follow. So we're working on that now. We got everybody at the table. We're trying to bring this out to market so it makes more sense to you, to the training community, to the workforce, and to the individual to say, if I want to go into a career, how do I get there? If I need formal education, I can go to training. How do I get to that next level? So with that said, there's a lot of these certifications. If your students are pursuing these certifications, or if they want to pursue these certifications, they could be in the IT world, introduce them to cybersecurity. Because they may already have those skill sets. Network Plus, great launch point. Security Plus, it's a foundation. It's the entry point into the industry. It's a great certification. So again, there's a lot of confusion what cybersecurity is. It means 100 different things to 100 different people. There's a lot of talking on Capitol Hill saying cyber warrior, cyber warrior, cyber warrior. Well, cyber warrior in some people's mind is really only 10% of the population. It's the highly skilled individuals that are the ones and zero guys, that are the offensive hacker type guys. Does the rest of the population need to be at that level? Probably not. So where do they fall? It's the 80-90% of the population, and that fits probably over in the text and the non-text. So basically, this is a simplified slide that I just put out there. It's really at your executive level. So your top of your population is, you're talking CEO, CIO. It's at that level. It's all about risk tolerance. EVP, VPs, it's risk tolerance again. You start getting into the security engineers and the security operators. That's the two different sides. So you have the policy management, and then you have your techies. You have your cyber warriors, your ones and zero guys. That is where we're trying to articulate when someone's entering this point, which side do you want to go on? Do you want to go into become a cyber warrior? Security Plus is a great starting point, and then to potentially go take the CEH, get your Certified Ethical Hacker cert, get the training in that, and then pursue the GX cert, some advanced certs. Or if you want to go to the policy side, management side, you go right over to ISC Square, get your CISSP. That's the kind of the path that we as the industry need to bring to you for you to kind of guide your students through that process. Now, you've probably seen some other presentations out there in this last day, I don't know, this morning, adding just the vendor-neutral security certs to the marketplace. Then you start having vendor-specific certifications. Then you have vendor-neutral certifications, and now we're talking about in the government about role-based certification. So now, throw that all together, and what do you have? What type of program? Yeah, it's chaos. And that is, but most of these programs are relevant. I mean, if you're going to be a Microsoft professional, you should be trained, certified, educated in that space. But when we talk about security now, how much time do you have to get a couple of CompTIA certs or Microsoft certs or Cisco cert, whatever you need to do, and then start getting into the vendor-neutral certs?
You said earlier.
No, yeah, absolutely.
You said earlier that in the top level, they have about 10% overlap in competition.
Yeah.
What about show these guys?
Well, it's, yeah.
I mean, just go to Microsoft. All the vendors have their security tracks.
That's security to their own program.
But there's a lot of overlap in terms of concepts and
concepts, but that's more defensive. That's going to be defensive posturing, how to plug a hole. The offensive side of some of these certifications is to basically hack into those systems. So you have to learn how to hack in to defend, and that's the concept of a lot of these certifications. The best defense is actually knowing offense.
Yes.
So they're not going to necessarily train how to hack into your Microsoft. Microsoft's not going to train you how to hack into their system. So that's the concept. That's one of the philosophies that's being tossed around right now with a lot of these groups, is that you should know how to be offensive to learn to be that professional, the cyber network defender. Is to look at the anomalies, to look at the different. If you're a network administrator, and you should be able to see these different areas, and then
go. You see the combination. Where you need to know your product, and you need to know how to hack it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly right. Now this is the issue, is how much you're now if you say, well, you have the vendor neutral certifications competing about 10% of the time. The reality is that we all compete. We compete for time, and we compete for resources. And that's just the bottom line, whether it's in academia or if it's in training. I just had this conversation this morning in the training industry. Most companies only have, if you're lucky, $3,000 a year for continuous education or training. Now, if you're a professional and you're a Microsoft professional or Cisco professional, and then you also want to get into some wireless training, typically the open market is about $2,000 on average per class. So what do you spend your money on? Where do you want to take that career? That's the other thing we're trying to say is wireless security. What does that mean? You have all these different topics. You have these different areas. The government's trying to figure that out so we can actually then go to market with, we need these specific skill sets in these jobs today. That way, it kind of takes some of the noise out, and so you all can then articulate that curriculum in the program, graduating students that are going to have the relevant skill sets needed in the workforce, whether it be in the .mil, .gov, or the .com industries. Any questions so far?
So which of those is the most relevant for the job marketplace?
They all are.
Okay. So there's no.
No, this is just open market. This is out there, and this is just a small sampling of what's going to be needed out there. Programming languages. I mean, there's a need for programmers, secure programming. Yeah, I mean it's a big thing. This is the, how many people in the room are familiar with the Centers of Academic Excellence? Okay, so this is a, Casey, maybe you can jump in here. So Casey O'Brien is in the room today. He's one of the schools, was it Community College of Baltimore County, right? Yep. And he's a member of the Cyberwatch group, doing some excellent programs out there. But if Casey wanted to just kind of jump in and just kind of give a description of the CAE program and the history and just kind of the background on it.
So it started over a decade ago. There was an NSA, National Security Agency-led initiative for the NSA to start recruiting the best and brightest in information assurance. And so they wanted to develop these a way to measure for your institutions and the curriculum they were offering. So they developed this set of criteria, 6 standards in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 14, 16. And the standards were very specific. So, for example, a standard around those that wanted to be information systems security administrators. And in the curriculum, you would have to go through this rigorous mapping process to map your curriculum to that standard. And the standard would have hundreds of elements. It would say things like, where do you talk about the difference between digital and analog? Which class? Prove it with a syllabi online and common course outline and objectives. So you would go through this fairly rigorous mapping process. The 4-year schools would you had to map to 2 of those 6 standards. And you had to show faculty that were doing research or publishing in information assurance. And you had your university, your college had to have security policies in place, so password policies and whatnot. And then NSA would review the applications and they would bless a school with or designate a school with the Center of Academic Excellence designation, CAE. And this has continued, and the CAE program has grown. There's now CAEEs, so the 4-year schools that focus on education versus the CAERs that focus on research. Purdue would be an example of a CAE product, right? They're churning out graduate students. They've got faculty doing research. They have so many publications per year. Are you guys at the CAE guys? So Cal Poly Pomona in LA is more focused on cybersecurity education. In the past couple of years, Cyberwatch, which is NSF ATE center in Maryland, focuses on cybersecurity, has pushed to create the CAE2I program, so Center of Academic Excellence in the tutor space. There are currently 13 CAE2Ys nationally, and only about 30 community colleges have mapped to one of the 6 standards. DHS has gotten involved now. It's become an NSA DHS initiative. Their support for schools to map to the standards. There are some scholarships available for the schools that get the CAE2I designation. And the whole CAE program that I'll show up in is morphing into, it's kind of in a weird state right now because those 6 standards that schools map to are over 15 years old. And so with the NIST NICE initiative, and if you Google NIST NICE framework, they've got an interactive PDF on their website. It's a really nice document that lets you see how the framework's being organized into these various job roles with knowledge, skills, and abilities that will allow HR and industry folks to actually start defining cybersecurity job roles. And so this framework most likely will replace the current 4010 series that schools are using to map to become a CAE. And most likely, the series is being called now the 4020 series. And so it's kind of a weird time to get involved in the CAE program, only because it's really in a state of limbo until folks figure out what's going to happen within this nice.
And this is up here is just the new the 4020 series that Casey just mentioned. So these are the domain areas, and then underneath of those domain areas, these are going to be some of the main focal areas. And then say IT compliance, what type of knowledge, skills, and abilities you're going to need to fulfill that job. So they came out 31 roles. They had to reduce it to 25 just due to some of the skill sets needed, and that was specific to certain agencies. And most, like I said before, you don't want the private sector doing that because they'd be in jail if they did. But the reality is, it's a great start. You got a lot of the agencies collaborating. There is, which is very not necessarily common. And then you also have a lot of private industry now coming to the table and learning ways that they can come and help. And then you got local businesses wanting to help. You have local communities that are getting involved. There's a lot, like down in San Diego, they have a Mayor's Cup, and they're getting all from the education, from the K through 12, the colleges, the Navy's involved, the system integrators involved, and it's a really good initiative. Go ahead, Casey.
The only thing I would add too is if you're interested in what's in it for me as a community college faculty, or what's in it for my community college to become a CAE or to map to these programs, if you come around, I'd be happy to talk to folks. It's really the value proposition is immense. Not only for your students, but just for the notoriety of your community college, politician support, financial support, the recognition of that as as one of the kind of first on the block in this year's space to get this designation. So
yeah,
come around, I'd be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another part of the equation now is the curriculum advancement. So you saw this slide. So what content's out there today that's going to map to this? And part of the KSAs that Casey mentioned before is knowledge, skills, and abilities. And one of the major pushes right now from the government is to qualify students and qualify the working professionals with that skills and abilities. So someone can take a test, perform well on that test, could be multiple choice, very smart in the book. They get on the system and may not necessarily perform all that well. Then you have the guys that actually perform well behind the computer and can't take tests. So which is more important, the guy that can actually do the job or the guy that's going to go out and take a test and sit behind the desk? So that's going to be a critical change in the way that the certification bodies are going to have to adapt to this. It's good. I mean, it's always been a knock on the certification industry. It's paper-based, you hear all these things, so it's good. It's a great benchmark. The reality is if you can prove out to that skill set, and you should be training, you should be educated in that live environment. So there's a lot of innovative technology that's being built for these labs. Casey and Dan mentioned yesterday some of the programs that they have, and they're building with some of their partners. This is just a partner of ours, Cengage, that they have a couple of their partners, a couple partners there. So they have the Security Plus, some of their labs built already. This is an EC Council lab set. It's really just the individual, but we actually developed this to help our training centers that are in the mid-tier markets. That we had some training centers that had 2 or 3 people that they wanted to take our classes, and they couldn't get in. So we built an iClass virtual live environment, and this is the practice tool to help study for the exam. What we found over the course of time was that 40% of the people that were using these labs were using them for certification study. The other 60% were actually using it for research. New threats and vulnerabilities get inside this environment. It's an individual cyber range, so you could actually launch these attacks. In our folders, we have all the tool sets, we have all the viruses, and it's a safe zone to start playing. If you mess it up, you just reboot it, and it's right there, right back in your hand. So it's a great tool, and that's really been for the private sector side, but it is open to individual the schools as well. What's going on in the marketplace? Some cool, innovative things. This is a pilot that was just run by SCIC. So SCIC runs the Cyber Patriot for high schools. This is just a sampling of the 200 plus students in 5 regions throughout the country. So SCIC runs the Cyber Patriot League, which is a cyber challenge for high school students. It's for network defense. There's teams of 6. They come together, they compete. They've been doing it was the Air Force Association started it, and they went to it was mostly for the junior ROTC programs around the country, and that morphed into the public sector schools, so they actually have 2 competitions. And then they figured out how do these kids, after these competitions are coming back, they wanted to learn more. How do what do they have to go back to? So they would compete, go back into school, and there was nothing there. So they they basically came up with a high school program and a pilot, and it was based on a 12-week program. It was an after-school program, so they had mentors or teachers after school that they would download the image, get them train a trainer, and then have the students go through the class, get in their labs, and these are the different areas of study. And this is just the weekly exercise scores by region. But these are the type of skill sets the high school students are learning. And what they did is over the 12-week time frame is they did a pre-class assessment or a pre-test. So they benchmarked the student immediately, went through the 12-week program, and at the end of 12 weeks, they took a post-class assessment, and they had this quantifiable data not only for the school, that region, but the individual student. So they can actually start developing skills inventory for those students. And they can basically have prescriptive or just-in-time learning modalities to say, you know what, you're strong in this area, you're weak over here, you should start studying up on that. So those are some of the innovative ideas that are out there. And I know Casey and the community college, they really want to push their national cyber league, right? And so that's the same concept, is to go out and compete. You'll start finding some of this data that's out there, and you can really kind of get people excited. It's a fun way to compete, get knowledge base, and then go back to your schools or go back into the professional workforce as a cybersecurity professional. The value proposition is huge. For you, for the individual, the cost of community colleges compared to a 4-year school is unbelievable. I first heard some of the programs down in the Maryland area. I said, what, $20,000? He's like, no, $10,000. These kids are graduating with industry certifications, vendor-specific, vendor-neutral, IA, associate's degree coming out of a CAE 2Y program. They're being hired up at Fort Meade. The NSA, some of the best people getting into those programs, making good money. So that the individual value proposition is huge. They're graduating with skill sets that are relevant to the workforce today. Graduating with standard certification accepted by industry. I'll go back to the video I mentioned. Remember that slide. Technology changes so fast, the threats change so fast, so if you're in a 2-year community college, you're learning that relevant skill set there. You're going right into the workforce with those relevant skill sets. And then the idea and the concept is to always go back and continuously learn. And again, that goes back into that National Cyber League, is to go back and compete and keep those skill sets up and going. For the school, you're going to have new relevant programs that are going to be applicable to your local community. So you can go into the Fortune 500, you can go into your small, medium businesses, because your small, medium businesses are going to be the ones probably most affected by this, because they're not going to have the resources and the know-how to actually protect their systems. Mapping to the critical needs, this is a national issue. So you're actually fulfilling some of the mission of the as a national community, as a local community. It's a public service to the local small, medium businesses. You're going to offer high school students new career paths. There's a lot of smart kids walking around today, even adults that are walking around. They don't know how smart they are. They don't know they have the aptitude to get into these programs. So what is out there is an aptitude test. If they're smart, I'll just use, I've got a couple minutes here. I grew up in the Hartford, Connecticut area, and back in the day when the Y2K, they were looking for COBOL programmers, and they couldn't find them. So what they did is just took an aptitude test out to the general population, and they said, come in, take this test. If you pass, you'll get training, and you owe us 2 years, and they gave them a good salary. What they found is that the people that actually passed the test were not technology related. They weren't math related. They were artists. They were English majors. So there's this whole population, it's 90% of the population outside that STEM program that can be applicable inside this community. So how do you get these high school kids engaged at that? Competition's one way, but just to show them that career path, because a lot of people are looking for work now, and they don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn to. So this is a great way, this is a great industry to be in. Industry, the value proposition for industry, both on the private sector and the public sector, students will have the relevant skill sets, again, that are workforce ready, just like you guys have been doing for many years, is preparing the students at that local level. And then you're offering continuous learning for that workforce, for that small, medium business, for that Fortune 500 company, for your local government. You're going to have the relevant programs, and they can come back into your programs to get continuous learning or training or education. This is just a crazy map that I developed because I was trying to figure this whole thing out at one point. But it's just that it goes from a top-down White House, but the blue up here is all the different cabinet-level agencies. and those red lines basically represent the vertical industries and the critical infrastructure. This blue line here is your K through 12. This is your college, university, small, medium business, state and local, critical infrastructure. So all these markets, these business markets here have these different need sets, but they're going to be vertically aligned into, say, healthcare industry. So inside of the say, Department of Treasury, you have the financial sector, so you're going to have all the regs and all the things that are the financial sector going on. The healthcare sector, HHS, right down to your local doctor's office. But the concept is that the students at this level will be coming back in, funneling these jobs that are going to be relevant to these vertical markets. So if you're in San Diego, you may be DoD-centric. If you go to New York City, you may be financial-heavy. But the idea is that 80% of those skill sets are going to be the same. Cybersecurity skill sets are there. It's just that 20% that you're going to know in your local market that you're going to need to tweak that's going to be relevant to that job market. So any questions, follow-up, please feel free to contact me directly. Are there any questions?